they were never found. In 3 different towns, years apart, strangers appeared without warning, watching, waiting, and vanishing into the dark. There were no clear motives, no suspects, and no arrests, just cold trails, unanswered questions, and the chilling certainty that someone had been there. It happened in the rain-soaked forests of Oregon, where a teenage boy received an empty box and a note that proved he wasn't alone. It happened in the frozen mountains of Wyoming, where footprints circled a home in the dead of night, leaving behind only a carved arrow pointing at the door. And it happened beside a quiet Minnesota lake, where a group of friends found photographs of themselves, taken from the shadows just hours before. Different places, different people, one thing in common: the feeling that the watcher is still out there. Pine Hollow, Oregon, November 2016. Pine Hollow was a small town in Oregon, nestled deep within a pine forest. This time of year, the rain almost never stopped, and the sky stayed gray all day. Lucas Hayes, 15, lived with his mother, Marlene, a night shift nurse at the hospital. Their wooden house sat on the edge of town, right by the forest, so quiet that sometimes the only sounds were wind and rain. On the evening of November 14th, it was pouring. Marlene was called in for a shift from 8 p.m. until morning and told her son to lock the doors securely and not open them for anyone. Lucas was used to being home alone, but the rainy darkness made him uneasy. Around 8:30 p.m., there was a knock at the door. 3 slow, heavy, deliberate knocks. Lucas peered through the peephole. A man in a dark blue coat, baseball cap pulled low, holding a large package sealed with yellow tape. Rainwater streamed from the brim of his cap down his cheeks. "Delivery, for the Hayes family. You need to sign for it," the man said in a low, even voice. Lucas hesitated. His mother hadn't ordered anything. "Sorry, my mum didn't order anything." The man tilted his head slightly, the eyes beneath the brim darkening. A chill ran down Lucas's spine. "I'm not accepting it. Please leave." The man stood there for a few seconds, then turned and walked down the steps, disappearing into the rain. Lucas locked the door and tried to calm himself. 15 minutes later, from his upstairs window, he saw the package still sitting there. On the lid was a scrap of paper with scrawled handwriting. "I know you're alone tonight." Lucas's heart pounded. He immediately called 911. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. They opened the box. It was empty. Only the smell of wet cardboard and tape remained. Outside, the rain had erased most of the footprints, leaving only a faint muddy trail leading into the path behind the house. A neighbor's security camera captured a tall, thin figure, about 6'1", wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap. He walked into the trail and vanished into the forest. His face was obscured, no vehicle in sight. The police took the box and the note as evidence. Before leaving, they told Lucas to keep the doors locked and not to open them for anyone. That night, Lucas didn't sleep. He kept imagining footsteps on the porch. The next morning, Marlene returned and hugged her son tightly after hearing the story. In the days that followed, no one else received strange packages or threatening messages. Some neighbors said it was just a drifter trying to scare people. Others brought up vague stories about disappearances in the western woods. Lucas wasn't sure which to believe, but from that night on, whenever it rained and someone knocked on the door, he found himself gripping his phone tightly, eyes fixed on the curtain, waiting or hoping that it wasn't the man with the empty box. He was never found. North Bend, Wyoming, January 2018. North Bend was a small town deep in the mountains of Wyoming, where winters were long and unforgiving. That January, a snowstorm came early and hard, covering everything in nearly half a meter of snow. The sky was almost always gray, with only a faint flash of sunlight slipping through the clouds before fading away. In this region, the rarest sounds were the whistling of the wind through the mountain passes, or the soft crunch of snow when someone walked by. Nathan Cole, 17, lived with his father, Daniel Cole, in an isolated wooden house, almost 3 miles from town. Nathan's mother had passed away when he was just 10, leaving the father and son to rely on each other. Their home had a wide wooden porch facing the front yard, with snow-covered pine forest stretching out in the distance. On the evening of January 12th, with temperatures dropping to -15 degrees Celsius, Nathan bundled up and went outside to fetch more firewood. The yellow glow from the porch light glimmered on the snow, and as he bent down to gather the wood, he noticed something. 2 crisp rows of footprints in the otherwise untouched snow. They started from the forest, went straight to his bedroom window, stopped there, then turned back the same way, disappearing into the darkness of the trees. Nathan shivered. "Dad, come look at this," he called. Daniel stepped outside, frowning. At the prints, maybe someone got lost, or a hunter, but Nathan didn't believe it. The steps were deep, evenly spaced, and the fact that they stopped exactly at his bedroom window made him uneasy. The next night, the snow fell even thicker. Wind howled through the cracks in the house. Around 2 a.m., Nathan woke up. He didn't know why at first until he realized there was another sound mixed with the wind. Footsteps on the wooden porch. Slow, heavy, evenly spaced. He held his breath and listened. The steps came closer to the window. Gathering his courage, Nathan carefully pulled the curtain aside just enough to see Dot. In the dim glow of the porch light stood a tall figure, dressed in a thick black coat, who'd pulled tight over his head. He was completely still, just a few meters away. Nathan couldn't make out the face, but he knew the man was staring directly at him. Nathan stepped back, heart racing, and ran to his father's room. Daniel jumped up, grabbed his hunting rifle, and rushed onto the porch. But outside, there was only falling snow and darkness. No footprints, no sound. The next morning, Nathan went to check the yard. The footprints were back, but this time, they didn't go straight from the forest to his window. Instead, they circled the house several times, forming a large ring. The deep, clear impressions showed that the person had been walking there for quite a while during the night. Daniel called the town police. 2 officers arrived, photographed the scene, and took notes. When they went around to the back of the house, one officer stopped and pointed at the dark wooden wall beside the back door. Carved deep into the wood was the shape of an arrow, its point aimed directly at the door. "Could just be a prank," one officer said, though his voice lacked conviction. Nathan stood still, feeling as though someone was watching from the white expanse of the forest. Police searched the surrounding area. The fresh snowfall had erased almost all traces beyond the ring of prints. No vehicles were found nearby. They questioned a few townsfolk, but no one had seen a stranger. A case file was opened, but within weeks it was marked unsolved, for lack of evidence. For the rest of the winter, Nathan kept his curtains drawn tight at night. Every time he stepped outside, he felt eyes on him. The arrow mark remained on the wall, even after Daniel tried several times to scrub it away. And the footprints never appeared again. But Nathan knew that didn't mean the man had left the mountains. He was never found. Maple Falls, Minnesota, September 2020. Maple Falls was a small town in Minnesota, known for its clear blue lakes and brilliant red maple forests in autumn. Beyond the main residential area, along the shore of Maple Lake, a few wooden cabins stood for weekend rentals. By day, the area was a paradise for fishing enthusiasts. By night, only the wind and insects could be heard. On Friday, September 18th, 3 college students, Daniel Ross, Claire Martin, and Jason Lee, drove nearly 4 hours from Minneapolis to get there. They rented a small cabin about 20 minutes outside town, right at the forest's edge, and just a few dozen meters from Maple Lake. The cabin was simple: a living room, a small kitchen, and 2 bedrooms, with a front yard that had a portable grill. That afternoon, the sky was clear and cool. They bought some meat, vegetables, and beer from a store near town and started grilling outside. As night fell, the moonlight reflected off the lake, and the peaceful air made everyone feel relaxed. Claire was the first to notice something strange. When she turned to grab a beer, she saw at the edge of the forest, about 30 meters away, a man standing still. He wore a dark jacket, hands in his pockets, face hidden in shadow. He didn't move, just watched quietly. "Daniel, look," Claire whispered. Daniel squinted, then shouted, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" The man didn't answer. After a moment, he turned and slowly walked into the forest, disappearing among the dark tree trunks. "Probably just a local, maybe curious," Jason said, trying to brush it off. But all 3 felt uneasy. They decided to pack up and head inside the cabin earlier than planned. The next morning, when Jason opened the cabin door, he stepped on a white envelope lying on the doorstep. No sender's name. Inside were 3 printed photographs, each 4 by 6 inches. Jason's heart pounded when he realized they were pictures of the 3 of them from the night before, taken while they were grilling. The first photo, Claire smiling, leaning toward Daniel. The second, Jason flipping meat on the grill. The third, all 3 sitting round the table, firelight on their faces. The angle was low, coming from the forest's edge, exactly where the man had been standing. No way. He stood there, taking these. Claire's voice trembled. Daniel gripped the photo tightly, looking toward the trees. If this is a joke, it's sick. They debated whether to leave, but decided to stay, thinking it might just be someone fooling around. Still, they barely left the cabin all day. When night came, Daniel locked all the windows and the front door. Around 2 a.m., Jason woke up. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then he realized it was something else. The faint creak of a door hinge. He listened. The front door was slowly opening. His heartbeat quickened. Jason quietly stepped out of his room. The front door was ajar. Outside was pitch black, with only a faint wash of moonlight. He was about to close it when he heard it. Clearly, slow, steady breathing, not from inside the cabin, from outside. Right at the doorstep, instinct took over. He backed away and ran to wake Daniel and Claire. Someone's out there. We need to go now. They quickly stuffed a few essentials into backpacks, leaving most of their belongings behind. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and shined it toward the door. No one was there, but faint, large footprints were visible in the damp ground. Without another word, they got into the car and drove through the night back to Minneapolis. Behind them, the cabin disappeared into the darkness, the headlights catching the forest edge one last time. The next day, Maple Falls police checked the scene. Around the cabin, they found numerous large footprints leading from the forest to the door. Then circling around, at the rear forest edge, they found a crumpled piece of paper with thick black marker writing, "Next time we'll be closer." No fingerprints, no witnesses. The cabin owner said no other guests had rented nearby that weekend. The case was filed as unsolved. Since then, the cabin has remained empty. It's still listed for rent, but no one dares to book it. Locals sometimes tell visitors that, on certain moonlit nights, if you stand at the forest's edge, you might see a tall figure, in a dark jacket, hands in pockets, silently watching until you look again and he's gone. He was never caught. 3 towns, 3 different nights, 3 strangers who came and went like ghosts, leaving nothing behind but footprints, shadows, and the certainty that they were real. The cases remain open, the names remain unknown, and somewhere, in the rain, the snow, or the dark edge of the forest, they might still be watching. If these stories kept you looking over your shoulder, there are more like them out there. Subscribe and follow this channel, so you'll know the next time that darkness comes closer.
Thank you for following.